Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wilderness Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rob Minturn, physical therapist, strength and conditioning specialist, owner of Wilderness Physical Therapy. Today, I want to do a follow-up podcast covering the topic of you have now made some time and you're not sure where to begin or how to go about things. I want to go over some things that you can expect once you start to dive into the change of your lifestyle habits. I want to talk about being a role model. And I also want to go over what is activity versus exercise. So going back, what to expect once you start to change your lifestyle habits. With your daily life, I always suggest people start working out in the mornings, especially if they've tried before with going to the gym or working out and they have failed. People are more inclined to get up and get it done and out of the way in the morning with fewer distractions when people wait for after work. Things come up with family, things come up with friends, things come up with work. Things just come up. It's generally easier for someone to not become distracted when they get up and get it done in the morning. Your sleep wake cycle will dictate how easy this is for you to do. We have the morning larks and the night owls. I have been someone myself that is very early to bed, very early to rise. So it's never been a problem to me. My brother, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. It just depends on the person. If you're trying to change your sleep cycle by 2, 3, 4 hours, that's going to be a very, very tall task for you to do. It might be best if you do go to the gym after work in the evening, like after your kids are down, where you still have a few hours before you try to go to bed. Working out just before bed, the dopamine release makes it a little more difficult for people to fall asleep sometimes. So be mindful of that. Or you might be able to fall asleep, but your sleep is not restful sleep. So you're waking up super, super tired in the morning because you're not able to get to those deeper stages of sleep. So be mindful of that. Watch your sleep if you're one of those late night owls who is starting to work out closer to bedtime and might not be having issues falling asleep, but your sleep quality isn't there. So just be mindful of that. The first 3 weeks are not going to be fun. They're not going to be fun at all the first 3 to 4 weeks because you're going to be going through growing pains with establishing a new routine. With establishing a new routine, time is going to be taken away from things that you once were putting time towards. So it's going to take conscious effort for you to be committed and be consistent with your workouts. So like I said, those first 3 to 4 weeks, it's going to take a little while to establish that new habit, establish that new commitment, establish that new lifestyle, but it will be worth it. Going with that, it's going to take a little bit for you to get a boost in your energy. You hear it from a personal trainer, from a fitness coach, from physical therapists, how there is a boost of energy. There is, but again, it's going to take a few weeks for you to get used to the new routine. If you're not feeling that boost of energy throughout the day, just know that it will be coming. It's just going to take some time as your body gets accustomed to the new routine. There's going to be soreness. There's going to be soreness with pretty much anything that you do. So you need to take it easy with the workouts. No matter what you do, if you're new to working out, you're going to induce stress on the body. You're going to induce enough stress on the body that the body is going to change. It's mostly going to be nervous system adaptations, where your nerves and your brain are communicating a lot better with your muscles as far as force production and the coordination on the muscle contraction sequence. So know that you don't have to go in and whoop your butt within the first, for sure, 2 or 3 weeks. You can go in, do a little bit. It's going to go a long ways within these first 6 to 8 weeks, but definitely within the first 2 to 3 weeks. So be kind to yourself and make it to where you can squat down to the toilet without having to hold on to grab bars or install grab bars because you're so sore. What to expect in the gym, I just touched on this, but adaptations in the first 6 to 8 weeks are going to be more nervous system adaptations. After that, then you're truly going to start to dive into muscular adaptations. There are 3 systems that go into someone's ability to make progress. It's the brain, the central nervous system. It's the nerves that are extending down your neck out to your arms and legs and trunk and core. That's your peripheral nervous system. And that's the muscles themselves. So the first 6 to 8 weeks, it's mostly central and peripheral nervous system adaptations, your brain and your nerves running down your arms and legs. After that, then you start to get to the muscular level. You're going to see a lot of progress within the first 6 to 8 weeks. You're going to really start feeling stronger. The best is yet to come because you are only making the nervous system adapt at that point, and then you're going to start to get down to the muscular level. And that's where you really start to see physical change, where you start to notice changes with your body. How to start the gym. Bare minimum for resistance training, you have to train a muscle group twice a week in order to induce change. once a week is for maintenance. 2 to 3 times a week for muscle group is progression. You don't need and you don't want to train any more than 3 times a week for muscle group. But again, minimum would be twice a week. I generally coach total body because that's only getting you in the gym twice a week. Whereas if you do body part splits, depending on how many body parts you do in one day, but you're for sure going to be going probably 3 times a week, if not 4. So total body splits in the gym make it much easier to hit each muscle group twice a week. It's not going to be as heavy as far as training volume with the total body with each muscle group. But again, you don't, for hunting, you don't necessarily need to be jacked out of your mind to have a high level of fitness in the mountains. So doing total body part splits is generally what I recommend. Running or cardiovascular training, rowing, ski ergometer, whatever you want to do, 2 to 3 times a week is going to be what you want to do to induce change. 3 times a week is going to be more of the minimum. Twice a week you can get away with depending on the duration, but 3 times a week is where you're going to want to start in general. So that puts you working out at 5 times a week. And then signs of progression with resistance training, your weight needs to match your reps. And by that, I mean, once you hit your desired number of reps, say it's 4 sets of 6, your weight needs to have you fatigue at 6. Like you want to put that weight down at 6. If you're doing 4 sets of 15, you need to be fatigued at that 15th rep and want to put that weight down. If you can do more than 2 reps on that last set, you need to bump up the weight depending on how many reps you do. Like if you do 3 to 5 reps, I would say the next time you do it, probably bump it up 5 pounds or so, depending on the lift, but maybe 5 or 10 pounds. If you do 10 plus reps in that last set, you have to bump up the weight. I'm going to guess 10 to 15, maybe 20 pounds. Play it by feel, but you definitely need to be fatigued on that last set within the last few reps. Your weight at 15 reps should and will look much different than your weight at 6 reps. So if your weight is very similar at those 2 weights, you're probably not, one of them is not dosed correctly, and you're not going to induce the change that you need to induce at each one of those desired reps. Generally, people go a little too light when they start to get into the lower rep schemes. So sets of 5 or less, 6 or less, people are generally a little timid about going too heavy. And I'm on the opposite side of that. I think if you go too heavy and you get 1 or 2 fewer reps, then for next time, just go a little bit lighter. But you definitely don't want to underdose those heavier sets because there's a lot of positive change that comes out of lifting heavy weights. And you do not get that just because you stop at 6 reps. Knowing when to progress with your cardiovascular workouts, it's necessarily not knowing what signs. It's not as clear cut as it is with weight training. More the progression with cardiovascular training is usually about 10% a week. If you're brand new to it, and I would say 6 months or less to cardiovascular training, you can progress anywhere from 20 to 25% per week. But again, you want to be doing about 3 days a week of that. So that way your body, the bony structure and the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, all of that stuff becomes adapted to that particular mode of exercise. So that way you don't run into overuse injuries. So again, progression is usually 10% if you've been training longer than 6 months, 10% per week, and then 20 to 25% per week if you've been training less than 6 months. But for the adaptations, you're looking at least 6 to 8 weeks to really start to notice a difference with if you're training in zone 2. Because of the energy system that you're training, it's going to take a while for that energy system to adapt. So that's why it's about 6 to 8 weeks. So trust the process. After that, you're going to really start to see your ability to work within that lower heart rate zone, and that's where the magic lies. At 12 to 16 weeks, you're going to see a significant change in your ability to work within that lower heart rate zone. If you haven't seen benefit there, then there's something wrong with your dosing. All right, moving on to the role model, because I touched on the role model piece on the first podcast, part 1 of this I Don't Have Time series, and I wanted to touch on it again because it happens very frequently when someone goes to change their lifestyle. They're trying to be a better role model for whoever is looking up to them. You came to a point where the pain, and it doesn't have to be physical pain, it could be emotional pain, psychological pain, any sort of pain, was greater. The pain for you to change was less than the current pain that you were in from the situation that you were in, meaning that for you to change, it took less effort and it sounded better than it did to stay in that current situation that you were at. Not everyone is there. There's a whole stage of readiness deal, and I'll attach those in the show notes so you guys can take a look at that, because you probably can look at it, see the progressions that you went through before you changed, and then understand that there are other that people around you, family, friends, kids, spouse, they're in a different stage of readiness, and you have to respect that stage of readiness. So I'll attach those in the show link or in the show notes, but they might not be where you're at. They may not be ready to change. The pain point at which they're currently at with their current situation has not exceeded the pain point for them to change. And you talking about it and you telling them that they need to change is not going to change that. It will not change that no matter how hard you try. You're going to be blue in the face, but it will not change. I've actually had to talk to 2 spouses in the last few weeks with clients that I'm seeing in person, let them know that because they want their spouse to change more than what their spouse wants to change. Both of them are nearing the clients are nearing probably the end of life, I would imagine, within the next 2 years, year to 2 years. And with that, the resent that it could create for someone to not want to change and not want to change their lifestyle habits, and then having their spouse be the one that wants it more than them, that can create a sticky scenario between the two of them. And that's the last thing that needs to happen with the end of life, is having resent for decisions made despite being married for the last 50 or 60 years and having that last year or two be not enjoyable. That's not how a marriage that long should go, in my opinion. So I've had to talk to the spouses to say, you've got to let go a little bit. You've got to take a step back. You cannot change them unless they are ready to change. So be mindful of that. Invite them. There's always an open invitation. Let them know that they can always come work out with you. Even if you get 27 no's, that 28th time that you ask, they may say yes. And that might be the ticket, right? They see you doing it for a month long because they might think, well, you're just going to do it for a short period of time and then quit. They might see you sticking with it. And that might be the thing that might be that last little tipping point that they need to see that allows them to change too. Okay. Avoid pushing it. Like when you invite them, avoid pushing it. I've been guilty of that. I get pushy, but keep the invite open. Always invite them, avoid pushing them, and they will change when they're ready to change. All right, the last bit, activity versus exercise. So there are 3 points that I want to talk about with this. There's intent, there's duration, and then there's intensity. That is going to be the 3 things that delineate activity versus exercise. What is the activity intended to do? What is the activity that you are currently doing? What is the intention of that? If you're taking out the garbage, the intent of that activity is taking out the garbage. It's not exercise. If you're walking up the stairs to go to the bathroom or to take a shower or go to bed because you need to, because you're living a 2-story home, that is not exercise, that is activity. It may be very difficult. It may be a 1 rep max, and that's another conversation as far as 1 rep max living, to where everything that you do is tapping you out. That's a problem. What is the intention of the activity that you're doing? If the intention is not exercise and you are trying to double it up as exercise, that does not count. If it's a daily habit or daily activity, that is exactly what it is. The intent of exercise is exercise. So it needs to be just that. That's where the benefits lie. It is beneficial to have a very physically demanding job. It's beneficial to be a busybody all day and doing things all day, but that is not exercise. The intent needs to be exercise. Duration, as little as 5 minutes. The recommended exercise amount per day is 30 minutes a day for adults. Now that can be broken up into 6 5-minute segments. That can be broken up into 2 15-minute segments. It can be 1 30-minute segment. It could be a 20 and a 10. As long as you accumulate that 30 minutes of intended exercise a day, we just talked about intent, that's the important thing. Someone after knee replacement, or someone after a surgery, someone after a stroke, it's the same recommendation. It does not matter what condition is going on. It is the same recommendation. What changes is how long they can go for before they have to tap out. Some people can get to 5 minutes of walking and they are done, toast. Like that is all they can do. Okay, great. That's it. The 5 minutes turns to 8 minutes. 8 minutes turns to 9. 9 minutes turns to 12. 12 turns to 16. 16 turns to 25. 25 turns to 30. And all of a sudden they're at their 30. Now, all those numbers are probably a weekly. They're going to have to do that every day for a week. But as long as they accumulate that 30 minutes each time, that's the important thing. So as your fitness improves, the duration of your exercise bout needs to be longer. Duration should always be increased before intensity. Exception, time cap. Like your fitness level is okay. You're not concerned about any sort of orthopedic or cardiovascular issues or anything like that, to where you're capped for because of your exercise capacity, and you have 20 minutes, you can do a very high intensity workout with 20 minutes before you ever get to like a 60-minute workout. In general, you want to increase the volume of especially your aerobic activity, your cardio activity, before you really start to increase the intensity of the activity, just because of the strain that increasing the intensity of the activity puts on the nervous system, on the muscles, the tendons, the bones, the ligaments, and the other soft tissue structures. Not that it's bad, it's just better to increase that overall volume, increase the overall duration of the exercise at a low intensity first, and then increase that relative intensity. Okay. But again, it's as someone's fitness level improves, say after knee replacement, they can walk for 5 minutes. As their fitness level improves, they can now do 5 minutes without it being an issue. So now you need to bump it up to 10 minutes, right? You need to keep hitting that ceiling, that exercise capacity ceiling, for there to be benefit. So that's what we do. All right. Now, increasing the intensity of exercise. So again, the intensity of activity versus the intensity of exercise. Activity is generally very low intensity. Not that it's not good for you. Not that your exercise has to be super high in terms of intensity. Activity is generally not getting your heart rate up to a specific zone where there's exercise benefits, where there's cardiovascular benefits. The same thing with weight training. You're generally not lifting close to your 1 rep max. So you need to be in the weight room, stressing your body with weights to induce these types of changes on the muscles, on the bones, on the tendons, everything like that. All right. I hope that answered some questions. If you have any questions at all, please reach out, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Hey, thank you for tuning in to the Wilderness Fitness Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please head over to your podcast app and consider leaving a review. If you think a friend or a family member may benefit from listening to this podcast, please consider sharing this episode with them. We appreciate your help in the growth of this podcast. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram for even more content, and the weekly Hump Day Q&A, where you can get all of your human performance, rehab, women's health, and injury prevention questions answered. If you're interested in getting hooked up with even more content from Wilderness PT from the comfort of your own home, head over to wildernessphysicaltherapy.com and get signed up for the Spike Camp membership. This is where you'll have access to prior seminars and a workout that'll have you in shape each fall, designed by yours truly. Since you're there, check out the mid-month media newsletter that goes out 1 to 2 times a month, which includes a variety of topics with the most recent research on health and human performance. You can sign up by hovering over the free resources section and subscribe to any of the free guides, or simply sign up under the mid-month media newsletter tab.